The forgotten animatronic that might explain everything part 2. Now, before we go any further, we need to address something important. Whenever FNAF introduces a mystery, most players immediately focus on the biggest characters, the killers, the victims, the main mascots, the obvious suspects. But some of the most important clues in this franchise come from characters nobody pays attention to. And that's exactly what may be happening here. Because the more we examine this forgotten animatronic, the more it starts connecting to a recurring idea that appears throughout the entire series. Observation. Not attacking. Not chasing. Observing. Think about it. How many times in FNAF do we see characters watching before they act? Security cameras. Hidden eyes. Characters standing motionless in hallways. Machines collecting information. Again and again, the franchise returns to the concept of observation. Almost as if learning is more important than attacking. At first, that seems insignificant, but then something strange happens. Years later, newer characters begin showing exactly the same pattern. They watch, they study, they adapt, and suddenly, what looked like a random behavior starts feeling intentional. Now here's where things get interesting, because when we compare old locations to newer ones, we notice something unusual. The technology evolves, the buildings change, the mascots look different, but the underlying themes remain surprisingly consistent. Memory, identity, imitation, observation. These ideas never really disappear. They just evolve. And that raises a disturbing question. What if some of the franchise's biggest mysteries aren't separate stories at all? What if they're variations of the same story repeating itself over and over again? Because once you start looking for patterns, they appear everywhere. Characters searching for lost family members, machines trying to recreate human behavior, artificial personalities becoming more realistic over time, stories about grief, stories about obsession, stories about people refusing to let go. Different games, different characters, the same emotional core. And that's why this forgotten animatronic matters. Because it might represent one of the earliest examples of those ideas. A character created long before the franchise fully explored them. Almost like a rough draft. A preview of concepts that would become much more important later. But there's another detail that bothered me. A detail that most people overlook completely. The environment surrounding the character. Because in FNAF, locations matter. The rooms characters inhabit often tell us just as much as the characters themselves. Dark hallways, underground facilities, hidden workshops, abandoned attractions. These aren't random settings. They're reflections of the people who built them. And when we look at where this animatronic exists, a pattern starts emerging. Isolation, separation, distance from everyone else. Almost as if the character was deliberately placed away from the rest of the world. Not because it was dangerous, but because it knew something the story wasn't ready to reveal yet. And that's where the theory becomes really unsettling. What if the character isn't important because of what it does? What if it's important because of what it represents? A bridge, a connection between multiple eras of the franchise. A clue hidden in plain sight. One that players have been staring at for years without realizing it. Because once you view the character through that lens, suddenly dozens of strange details begin making sense. Details that seemed random. Details that seemed disconnected. Details that nobody could fully explain. Until now. And if this theory is correct, then the forgotten animatronic isn't just another side character. It might be one of the keys to understanding how the entire FNAF story is constructed. Not through direct answers, but through repeated themes, repeated symbols, repeated ideas. Ideas that continue appearing generation after generation. And trust me, we've only scratched the surface. Because the next piece of evidence changes everything.